shalls.
All
right. Now this is into the offer and acceptance. They got rid of going through the loan obligation fee. The seller agrees to pay up to, right? Because truly 98% of the time was zero, move on, kind of wasted statement. It used to be back in the 2000s where, FHA had its fee, VA had its fee, and those had to be covered, so on and so forth, but not so much anymore. Good. My fingers are just like,
Sticky.
don't get there. All right, here we go.
The appraisal on the loan.
Yeah, appraisal contingency. This is gonna be a good one. Yeah, so
It's good.
it was how it was written. Here, let's go through, move this up a little bit. So before it was written, going into California, appraisal contingency be removed within X amount days of acceptance. Buyer shall remove the appraisal contingency, right? So if you go into California, California has to go through and basically write that is now going to be removed and it has to be in writing. So they went through and corrected it to where now it expires after 21 days or 10 days or 14 days or 28 days or, whatever it may be. So there is no element of written. So if it's not deemed accepted, it's automatically approved. Or, not accepted. So,
Right.
so pay attention, right? Because if you're at 21 and the appraiser's like, I'll probably get it done in 2 more days and you're at 21,
You better get
you better get an addendum to extend it out.
Standards 21.
Yeah. I mean,
Depends
even
on
when
market.
lenders like, I can get it done in 14 days. I'm like, 21 days sounds great. Great, you can, but I don't think so. And keep in mind, like, if you have a challenging property, right? A custom built house or a house that's like, kind of out in the middle of nowhere or something that's going to make it very complex. Keep in mind, like, lenders go through and put it into a appraisal management system. And then it basically gets sent out and appraisers pick up the appraisal, right?
Or
And
if you
so
have,
sometimes they're like, yeah, I'm not doing that.
Right.
If you have a VA in Fallon.
Yeah, like they're not going out there. So
Yeah.
you might run into some major issues, like you might put 21 days and you might be 28 days. So just know, like, going into it, and I always preface with my buyers, like, hey, here's some problems that we can run into, just so you understand that, right? This is how the system works. This is what it is. I just want you to know, we might have to come back and we might have to address this.
Are there any checks on that? Like if no appraisers wanted to pick that up, we could all just sit here and stare at each other and they don't get to buy the home?
You have to get proactive and find some rural.
And then somebody's gonna be like, yeah, I'll do it for like $2,500.
There's no check on that for like.
You're at the mercy, but what I've done is I've gotten on the phone with different, let's say the lender's some local lender here. And he or she's put it out there for a property in Paradise Valley, north of Winnemucca, 500 miles away.
Yeah.
And it's not getting picked up.
Yeah.
All right, it's not getting picked up, so you need to get on the phone with maybe a local lender in Winnemucca and say, hey, do you have anybody who you can get that you've worked with? And I've done that many times, and you sometimes have to call that appraiser yourself and say, hey, listen, can you please do this for me? Or there's water rights involved, and so sometimes you're gonna have to continue to extend that appraisal contingency because it'll take 60 or more days.
Yeah, it just blows my mind that there's no check on that.
I bought an amazing, house in Battle Mountain. I thought I was gonna flip this thing because it was like such a smoking deal, which it was, right? I just didn't calculate how nobody really wants to go to Battle Mountain. And then when I was driving out there to demo the house and work on it, I was like, this place sucks. I don't remember this as a kid, right? So same thing. I ended up having to carry the loan. Didn't get an appraiser. So I was like, okay,
yeah,
sure, I'll carry the loan. That was stupid. All right. So
Times have you sold it?
I'm still carrying the loan.
Awesome.
Yeah, I always call and check in like, hey man, when rates are down, I'm like, rates are down, you want to refi? You ran into the same problem, like, sure, I'd love to. But I can't get an appraiser. I was like, oh, damn it. You have plenty of equity. I mean, I think you do. So, all right. Appraisal contingency, same thing with loan contingency. So now that's cleaned up. there's like a cool little pen that this thing has. I don't know where it's at. All right, so will shalls. Okay. Okay, one of the things that I saw going into HOA,
Yeah.
common interest community. There was a phase of last year where I was having title companies, which really upset me, go through and send me the resale docs
Mhm.
and then wanted me to forward that over Right.
That's the listing.
as a listing agent. And I was like, not a chance. Thank you. Send them over, right? Because timing starts when they go through and send them over, right? And I'm not into hand holding that stuff. And I don't want to put, I mean, that's title's job. That's not my job. Like, and I'm not inheriting the liability of that. Because then they would be like, yo, we sent them to Brian. And you know, truly, I wouldn't send them because I forget. I don't want to talk about it. So,
Is it,
but I don't use them.
is it really title's job or is that a courtesy they do for us?
Cause that's what they tell everyone. is
I don't really
it's a
care. It's title's
courtesy.
job.
Yeah. For them to
We
get
don't,
paid.
we don't order them.
I
It's
mean,
not our job to deliver.
I don't take their credit card. It's not part of my documents. I don't do anything like that. They're the ones who do it. It's their job.
Hypothetically, they should send them directly to the seller.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Because the seller's paying for the HOA package.
Yeah.
But.
they
we
send
don't
them the
know
link
that
to
That's
pay.
that's gonna be a disaster. So the title company, in order to keep everything, it's a service.
Yeah.
That's what I've always been.
They should
Yep.
do
But
it.
so they're not required to, in my
Yeah.
experience, but it is a service that they need to provide that once it's available.
Well, and for me,
Buyer and seller
They-
pays the
they-
title company.
anything the title does
Yep.
needs to be in direct communication with all sides.
Yep.
Yeah.
Because otherwise you do, you get stuck.
Well-
Well, I sent it to Ricky.
Well, and that's it, right? So, you know, hey, you know, just sent all the documents over to Jason and Aaron, and, you know, I mean, whatever it may be, they should be telling me that they got that. Truly.
You're right, communication.
And that's-
In any transaction is key.
I mean, Regency. I mean, they've got 3 HOAs. Right?
Gross.
You know, it's like, they're like, well, we got one. Should we send it? I'm like, no,
Yeah.
send them all at the same time. You know, like, same time, hold on to it. Sorry, like, don't do that. So, all right, you guys good with that?
And it's, wasn't there an addition to like a 5 days? from
Yeah.
receipt?
So the buyers will have 5 days of receipt of the resale package to review it. If buyer doesn't approve the resale package in written, then written notice to cancel must be given within that same 5-day period. So receive it, day 0.
Yeah.
Next day, day 1, right? So just know how that always goes. And, you know, and I always try to go through and just explain, you know, when I'm representing the buyer, I'm explaining to them how we're gonna get out of this deal. When I'm representing the seller, I'm explaining how are they gonna get out of this deal. So these are all kind of like,
Contingencies.
hey, cool, here we are. Hey, cool, here we are, you know, so that's just, you know, good business, I think, you know, just to go through and explain all that.
Hurdles, I always tell my buyers, we've got different hurdles and AKA contingencies. And there's usually about 2 or 3 of them that you need to satisfy yourself with in this, and these are the timeframes. Can we back out and get our money back? Yeah, you can, as long as you abide by these timeframes for the hurdles.
Shells, everything else, yeah. Ricky, that's for you. Wrap. 35. Okay. This is important. We were talking about this. If you guys look at this, there's common interest community, there's lead-based paint, there's the solar power, there's the backup offer, there's the lease agreement. And nowhere in there does it say anything about the insurance, right? For the, I would start putting that on there. Just acknowledge it. I just think it's, you know, if they're putting it in there, I'm just assuming that there's been lawsuits and there's gonna be lawsuits and I don't want to be caught into the middle of that.
When you send the offer, you send all of those.
When I send the offer, if they're in a common interest community, I just do common interest community. I'll end up including that, the insurance, just for how I'm processing it right now.
Right.
And then I always go through and include their MLS listing. always. The day that we write the offer. I will do a PDF, I'll print it up. I'm gonna have my buyer initial every single page. And so I just don't want to get into, oh, well,
Or they
we
change
said we were gonna
sentences.
go ahead and take the pergola, or we said we were gonna go ahead and leave the hot tub, and I'm like, yo,
It's not in the MLS. Yeah.
prove this. I've also gone through and had them remove pictures of a chandelier that they didn't take out, that I thought we wouldn't notice. And came back and my clients were like,
Where's the chandelier?
where's the chandelier? I'm like, chandelier? Really? There's a chandelier there?
Right, you don't remember.
I gotta buy her an AC unit.
So I'm just, I'm always, hey, more disclosures, everything else a little bit better. I personally think you should probably include that, personally. That's just me. I'm sure they're gonna probably put in here
I-
other and other.
I will include the MLS sheet from time to time or have it for my own records, but these are what I send along. Because they're the exhibits to the
Yeah.
offer, but I typically don't.
These are all what they have assigned.
These I don't necessarily send those along
Okay.
with my offer.
Is the agenda still, or the arbitration agreement still on the list? Because that
Yeah.
in the old form is what would always be missed, because up there you have to initial it. And then it was on the list, you had to make sure that you sent that along with the offer.
Oh, I haven't
Yeah,
seen-
I didn't see that it was taken out. Let's see.
that might have been done
At the
'Cause I
last-
think-
The last time.
possibly, yeah.
Oh, here's some more. Here's the other ones. Sorry.
Agreement to occupy.
Is it the very top? I thought.
The arbitration is under the default sections.
Yeah, I thought it was within.
Yeah, I didn't see anything being. Yeah, it's still there.
Oh, is that one?
Sorry.
On by
This doesn't talk about arbitration, but it talks about default and
liquidated damages
Liquidated
versus
damages.
actual damages.
Right, but at the bottom in the documents that were provided, one of the documents was the actual arbitration agreement. Because
Seen that
there's
one
a
time.
separate form that is the arbitration agreement.
For residential?
Yeah, or maybe it's in commercial.
Yeah.
It
Maybe it's
might
in
be, because I haven't seen that.
If it's
I don't know.
residential, I had never heard of
Okay,
it
so
before, which I could be doing it wrong.
Yeah,
but-
no, it's
Jason, I've
probably
never
is
heard
in
of it.
commercial. When do you use the lake
I
Tahoe
was
basin
looking
region?
at-
On the open range.
Lake
Open
Tahoe
range you
is
should
when-
use in Damani anytime you sell a house.
Well, that's actually a good point.
In Valley, just like that.
Open range, anytime you're adjacent to open range land.
Well,
and some-
adjacent means close to it, like, that's open range.
Open range land disclosures, it's a good point, certainly up in the Virginia foothill, Virginia Highlands, all those areas and urban areas. Damani Ranch might not be a bad idea.
Yeah.
I haven't done it.
Case has everybody sign open range in Damani Ranch because of the horses and whatnot. LPT has done it recent as well, that they've asked for open range. And I was like, look, if you read the open range, I mean, we'll do it, but like if you read open range, that's not really what it says,
They're feral.
but I get it.
I mean, you're gonna do it for feral cats?
Yeah. And as far as the Lake Tahoe Basin regional disclosure, that's just when you're selling a house up in the Lake Tahoe Basin.
How about commercial property?
In the Tahoe
I
Basin,
haven't seen that in the commercial one, but I don't like the other one.
Yeah, I would,
So,
yeah.
the Tahoe Basin disclosure is talking about things like the TRPA and
Yeah.
building restrictions.
I haven't seen that disclosure, so.
all right. I think this was it of our forms.
Yeah, I know there was the solar was
Oh, yeah.
the one that we,
I think that-
the only one that had a notable.
Environmental contact
change.
list, they changed the buyers.
Yeah. All these are the same with just, you know.
Right to farm. Right to farm.
County. And again, we kind of.
There we
talked
go.
about The solar,
Here's the solar.
they made some significant changes to this, just familiarize yourself.
I still don't think that it addresses it properly.
Yeah.
Right? Because you're not talking about the inverters, you're not talking about battery backups, you're not, I mean, there's so many things that they're still missing. But we're getting closer.
And you suggested a solar power audit.
Yeah,
by an
yeah,
independent
so there's
company, which
companies,
could be taking the liability, responsibility off of your shoulders and the seller's shoulders. And having somebody, especially for some of these solar companies that are out of business now.
Yeah.
Having an independent audit done by a person who takes it off of you. You're the source of the source.
Yeah.
You're not the source.
Yeah.
right?
So I mean, they could do energy audit, go through, figure it out, how many kilowatts. I mean, I've talked to sellers who are like, yeah, 13,000 kilowatts. And I'm like,
Yeah.
7 panels, really? Like 7,000 panels, maybe, but yeah. Oh, there's a whole bunch of companies in town. I know Jeb Bateman Bateman who works for Tesla does them. I mean, there's a bunch of companies that go through and do
Call
it.
you.
Yeah.
So
Um,
if you are representing a buyer that, they're buying a property with solar
Mhm.
and say, I know nothing about solar and the sellers don't know anything either.
Uh-huh. Typical.
Like 7 or 8 with solar and I'm kicking myself, but. So it'd be a good idea to just have this independent company, just add that as one of the inspections.
Yeah, I went through,
And you're just looking at, like,
I
functionality.
had a house that had like 24 different panels,
Yeah.
but 2 of them weren't even working after the energy audit.
And
Right.
possibly even consider doing that as part of your listing. If you're
Before
representing
you
the
can
seller,
list, yeah.
before, because
It's a
a
great
lot
idea.
of, it's becoming a little bit more common in Nevada where people are having home inspections done, when they list, which is kind of it's a good thing. And if you have a solar system where the seller's like, I don't know how this thing works, or regardless of whether or not they think they know how it works, it might be a good part of your disclosure package that you provide prospective buyer. And again, it takes it off of you and takes it off the seller.
What are they auditing the functionality of the whole system?
Yeah, so they'll
Or
go
are
through and
they-
they'll say, okay, this system produces, 18.6 kilowatts, right? And it has battery backups and here's the transformer and everything is functioning. I mean, so we will get pretty in depth to exactly what it is. And it will list out what the manufacturer of the solar panels are, who the transformer is, which is super valuable because if there are companies that went out of business, the warranty is 0, right?
Yeah.
But last year I went through, did some research and there's a company out of the Midwest who will actually come in after the fact and warranty solar. But only certain panels, only certain inverters, only certain battery backups, right? So they will do it and it's like costly, but I mean, it's something that, because I, represented a buyer and I'm like, yeah, like, cool, the company's bankrupt. There's no warranty with this thing, right? So I was using it to beat them up on price. Even though I was like, yeah, there's still a smoking deal, but.
Good idea. Yep.
Yeah, so just smart on that end, just to. We know real estate. We don't know inspections, we don't know solar, we don't,
Yep.
even if you do. Still don't,
Use your expert.
yeah, so. Cool,
Cool.
That's it. Thanks,
you
guys.
guys go with that, yeah?
Thank you.
That was a good, productive, long class.
Yeah.
Sam.
Yeah,
Very good.
Yeah.
Okay, refill.
Well, yeah, do you guys have any questions or
No, I
anything?
feel like I could pick apart Nor and how people handle that all day long.
Yeah, I know,
honestly.
good.
I know.
Yep. And anytime you have questions or thoughts about it, just feel free to reach out to either one of us.
Yeah.
Thanks, you guys.
Yeah.
Good job.
Every
Yeah.
class, I always get scared.
Well.
Okay. Company's real estate.
Yeah.
Well, the biggest thing I took away was the contingent on insurance, cause I had somebody who then insurance people were like, well, the home's 25 years old. I'm not gonna insure that roof.
Right.
I'm like, how many homes in this neighborhood, in this town were built?
I
In
have
2000.
a friend who's a realtor and she sells a lot of rural properties like in rural California and Nevada. She couldn't find an insurance company to insure this place out in Portillo or whatever it was to save her life. And she was on the phone. She said she called 25 different
They're
places.
pulling out of Red Rock too, because I have a listing out there that's temporary off the
Yep.
market, and it is, we're gonna discuss that before we put it back on the market.
Yeah. Yep, good.
Thanks.
I got a split. Thanks, man.
Yeah,
That was great.
Yeah,
That was good.
thanks, Jason. Yeah.